Trova fam. My name is Moxie Rogers, and I'm the marketing coordinator for TrovaTrip. In honor of Women's History Month, we're so excited to be bringing you an exclusive Trova interview with an incredible female host that we can't wait for you to meet. Our guest today is an LA-based content creator who has captivated her audience with her gorgeous fashion and makeup looks, who has created some of the funniest TikToks that exist on the internet, and who is a proud body positive, self-proclaimed Chicana trans woman. Please allow me to introduce you to Naomi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hello, Naomi. Thank you so much for sharing space with us today. Would you like to introduce yourself at all before we begin?
Yes, I think you did an amazing job. Thank you for all of that. Just to elaborate on that, I have been doing social media now for 2 years. It was definitely something that started during COVID, a COVID story. I was like, it was trying times. I had nothing else to do, and I was like, oh, why not start TikTok? And it really blew up. And honestly, what started out as something to kind of get my foot in the door turned into something about spreading love. And I love that. Like for me, it's about spreading love always. And that's something that I value on my platform.
I love that answer. I definitely can relate to the pandemic feeling like it upended all of our lives and
Right.
everything looked really different after that. So I think it's really powerful that you acknowledge that this was something out of your control and you turned it into something you could do something about, which was spreading love on your platform. I think that's incredible.
Thank you.
And I think we can all agree that your followers probably feel the same way, and that's why they're so captivated by you. So, with a large following on your platforms, I think it's really clear that you have a very diverse community of people coming to watch you, and they relate to your story in such an authentic way. I think it's like clear people love you, from your catchphrase "That's sick" to your infamous Fupanza smash. You bring so much joy to people. And so, what do you think it is about you, Naomi, that makes people so excited to be a part of your community?
Honestly, I feel like the reason why people are so excited to be a part of it is I think it's a factor of things. I want to start off with like acknowledgement. I feel like in social media, there are times where a lot of people who do have that title, who do have that role of influencer, do not give that acknowledgement that the followers deserve. At the end of the day, like they are the reason why we are successful. And I feel like it's so important to give that love and energy that they are giving you back. And I feel like that's something that I do very proudly. I always have time for my followers. And I think that's something that really has helped them stay. Um, I think another thing too is like I have so many different parts of me that relate to so many different people. You know, like I am transgender and I feel like that speaks to a group. I am plus size, that speaks to another group. And I'm Latina, that speaks to another group. I feel like I was able to kind of formulate myself and not really exploit it, but kind of share my story and have people connect to me in that way.
I think that's really beautiful. And I just really appreciate how important it is for you to connect to your community and kind of make them a part of your process of sharing this love. And I love what you said about like keeping them, included in the message that you're sending. And so what message exactly are you hoping to share with your community using your platform as a public figure?
Yes, I think my biggest message always is like, I've said it before, it's spread love always. And I think for me, it comes out of like, in this world, there is already so much negative energy. There's already so many things that are happening that are negative. Um, and for me, it's kind of like, I know when I was growing up and like I was being bullied, I would react in a way that was negative. But then I like, as I got older, I reflected and I was like, what is that really doing for me? What is that really doing for the situation? Like in that second, I clap back and I'm like, oh, I feel so much better. But then you like continue and you're like, it's gone. That moment of euphoria, like, oh, you stood up for yourself. Like in a negative way. Obviously, standing up in like a positive way is different. But like for me, standing up in a way that was like negative, like calling them a name back, like what did I gain from that? Nothing. So as I got older, I realized like even when they are sending you hate, you just spread love. You know, you take that, turn it into a positive, and spread that energy elsewhere because they're not really worth that. People like that are obviously going through something. You know, people are going through their own trauma, going through their own healing process. And I firmly believe that hurt people, and insecure people hurt people. And I think that's why there is so much negativity, which is another reason why I was like, instead of sending them back that hate, like you ignore it and spread that love.
Wow. I really resonated with what you said about how you have all of these different identities, and you use these identities to spread love that people, you know, that people can connect, whether you're a trans woman or that you're plus size or that you're Latina, and then people can relate to you and come together in that. And you kind of did just speak on this a little bit about how owning every aspect of your identity and leading through a place of love and authenticality wasn't always something that came naturally to you. You mentioned at one point that you would react more negatively, and so I would love to hear more about that journey of how you came to realize that you need to spread more love in order to kind of negate all the hate.
I really believe that it was a lack of self love. I think that for me, um, I seek validation from others, you know, which is kind of ironic, like being on social media, right? Like we post, it's kind of ironic, but I seek validation from others growing up, whether it was like a partner, whether it was like like parents, family, or friends. Um, I went on this discovery of like self acceptance first. And it's like accepting the fact that you are different in the eyes of society. You know, what again, whether that be plus size, whether that be trans, whether it be an ethnicity, like you are not the standard of beauty to many. And so I accepted that. But then I was like, okay, I accepted it, but I know that I'm beautiful. Like I don't need other people telling me, oh, you're not, whatever. Like, you know, spreading that to me. It was that acceptance and then it was that love. So I was like, you know what? I am different, but I love myself. Society may not think that I'm beautiful, but I know I'm beautiful. And then that love turned into confidence because you start giving yourself those affirmations. You start telling yourself that, you know, even though people don't think that I am, I know that I am. And that's what matters. And it was kind of like a domino effect. And once I was there, I was like, you know what? Like other people are probably not there yet. Other people are also probably getting bullied. Other people are going through their own trauma at home. And that's when I was like realizing, you know what? Like there is no point into fire with fire. Like you ignore it, ice it out, and you keep doing you. That's like the most important thing and most beautiful thing you could do.
Wow, you should write a book. I really love that answer. I would read it front and back.
Thank
Um,
you.
I just think it's really beautiful that you had your own story, and you could have definitely taken your own story and just been like, you know what, I'm just gonna own this for myself. I'm gonna do this for me, and there's nothing like inherently wrong with that. But you still took the extra step of saying, okay, I've gotten here in my process. I love myself. I'm confident. I know there's other people out there who are like me, and they aren't that way. And I know the answer to experiencing the beauty of life is fully accepting how amazing and beautiful we are. And you are incredible and a beautiful, awesome spirit. And so
Thank you.
I just am really, I just really admire that you were able to extend that part of yourself to your community and show them that, hey, you can love yourself too.
Mm, thank you so much.
Of course. I am curious about in this journey that you've been experiencing as a trans Latina woman, what is the greatest obstacle that you have faced, and how did you come to be the beautiful, hilarious, badass goddess that we see paving the way for us today?
That's a difficult question. I feel like I've faced a lot. You know, I think compared to other trans people, I have had it easier. And I think that's a privilege to acknowledge. Um, but at the same time, like I, it's very difficult. So growing up, I was bullied more for being plus size than I was for being transgender. I don't know if it had to do with being in LA. I don't know if it had like what it was, but it was more so for being plus size than being trans. And the only negative that came out of me growing up trans was like I lost that connection with my father 100%. He was not really in the picture, but I feel like we were trying to make it work because my mom and him never got married. And when it came out as trans, he was like, no, like that's it. And so I was like, if I wasn't where I was at, I probably would have lost it. Like that would have been it. But because I was like so comfortable with myself, like I thought about it and I was like, you know what, you really weren't in the picture. It's not really anything I'm losing. It's like, yes, we were trying to make it work. Yes, like you're my blood. But at the end of the day, if you're not going to support me, I don't really need that relationship. And I think that was one of the hardest parts for me, 100% in terms of like my transness and like growing up like in a Latina household. I think the hardest part was like struggling with my identity in terms of growing up in America. My parents are both from Mexico. Um, and when I was growing up, my grandparents were staying with us and they fully speak Spanish. Like they understand English, but fully speak Spanish. And I think it was a hard part being like a first generation in terms of being born here. Um, because they have this ideology of like the American dream. They have this ideology of like, you got to go to school, got to be the best. And it really stuck me out because I'm from South Central Los Angeles. That's where I grew up. That's where I was raised. And I got bussed out for school, and it was like a culture shock. I'm getting bussed out from South Central to West LA for school. And it was always so hard because it's like, how do you fit in? How do you try to make it work? Like growing up, it's hard, especially when you don't have the means that these kids have. I think that was also such a huge play on my identity. I ended up transferring back to a school more inner city, as they like to call it, and kind of found a way to reconnect with who I was in terms of my Latina culture. And I know it's strange, but it was kind of like when I was going to school out there, it was a whole different world. It felt so different, like trying to connect with ethnically white people who are coming from money. It was definitely hard on me.
Wow, I think you're really strong for everything that you've been through and the journey that you've been on, facing all of the different obstacles that you've had to face. And I think it's incredible that you are here today to tell your story.
Thank you. I'm trying. We're working. We're attempting.
So I want to get a little bit more of your story in regards to your experience with traveling. What do you think are the main benefits of getting out there and experiencing new places, people, and cultures via travel?
I was definitely someone that was scared of traveling. I've never really flown. I only flew once when I was little. So I haven't flown since. And I kind of feel like I did it to myself. I don't know if it was lack of like money. I don't know if it was like just scared of being a plus size body and hearing those horror stories. But I kind of like ostracized myself from traveling. And so recently, I started doing it again, not flying yet. I'm still a little fearful of flying, but I'm going to do it for this Bali trip. But I traveled like to Mexico recently, and it was so beautiful. It was such a good time. And it's like, it almost feels, it feels like, because I'm only 24, so I feel like I'm still young. I feel like anyone can be young, but I feel like I'm still, I'm a young adult, and I feel like I've missed out by like not attempting to travel sooner. Um, just because like the cultures, everything that you get to see, everything you get to experience that you don't get to experience here. I think it's so beautiful. And I know that it can be hard traveling as like um a plus size person, a trans person, I know that it could be difficult. Like you're always scared. And for me, it was such a good experience. Like I went with people that I was comfortable with. And it was something that made me feel comfortable. And it just made the experience more comfortable. And I think when that's something that you're doing, I think that it really is a beautiful thing because you get to experience stuff that you never would have experienced if you just stay home.
I definitely can understand where you're coming from with that answer. I'm also 24 and feel like I might have wasted some time when letting my fears not, you know, my fears keeping me from taking that next step of like seeing the world. And I think I definitely would have benefited from having someone like you to kind of tell me it's okay, like you can do this, you can be brave, you can be beautiful. And so I definitely think that your audience is really grateful that they do have someone like that to kind of show them, you know, there's more to life than what we feared. So what advice would you give to your trans travelers, or maybe your plus size travelers, or even your Latina travelers who are wanting to see more of the world but feel like they're stuck in that fear?
Don't let fear hold you back. And it's for any aspect in life, like whether it's a career move, whether it's a relationship, whether it's anything in life. Do not let fear hold you back because when you let fear hold you back, you miss out on so many wonderful things. And I think that is so important. Like we can face those fears and this is an opportunity to do it together, I think, and I feel like it's a very unique opportunity. But for sure, even without this opportunity, like fear is like the number one thing that holds people back in life. And I know it's a lot easier said than done. Once you get over that like bump in the road, I think it's going to be really rewarding.
I totally agree. It sounds like you've done a lot of, you know, your own soul searching and research. And I'm wondering, are there any resources you would recommend or like to share with your audience, specifically for traveling in their own identities and, you know, maybe they're feeling fearful? Is there anything specifically that you have either read or you know, researched on? You're like, they need to know about this. This has changed my life.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I just do a lot of Googling and watching TikToks. Like that's how I'm like learning. I'm like, okay. Like for example, I didn't know that some airlines do have like seatbelt extenders, which is great. I think most of them do. Um, I think that's really fun. So that like kind of took that fear out for the plane ride. I think another thing that I can add on to that is honestly just Google. Like I know it sounds like the most basic answer, but anytime you could ask my husband, he's at work, but if you were to ask him, I'll always be like, he'll say something like, let me Google this. I'm always on Google. And so that's another thing too. Like if you're looking to travel, if you're worried, like for example, like I know I asked Austin, I asked because Bali, I believe, is in a country where it's not necessarily, LGBTQ is still up in the air scenario. And so I asked, like, is it safe bringing like followers that are going to be? And I could have researched it too, but TrovaTrip was there. So when I asked, he said yes, like because it is a tourist city, like it's very much open and is very much, all of that. And so I feel like we can all like do that research and learn together about all of that good stuff.
I completely agree. I use Google for everything. Speaking of Bali, you have an amazing trip coming up in Bali in August. You're going to be island hopping, visiting the sacred monkey forest, and snorkeling, and the list goes on. I can already see how excited you are, and I want to know what excites you about your upcoming trip.
Honestly, all of the downtime that we're going to have, this is something that I told Austin. I was like, I am not an explorer. Like, I am an explorer, we're traveling, but I am not a hiker. So we need to make sure that the hiking's a minimum. No, but honestly, I'm really excited to like experience something new. I'm really excited for the people that I'm going to get to meet. I'm really excited for the food. I'm a huge foodie. I love food. And so I'm really excited about that. All of the leisure time. I'm really excited. about everything truthfully, just being there with good people, making memories. And that's really the best part because memories last forever.
Memories last forever. I love that. I also noticed that you are going to be leading a self-love workshop. And just from this conversation I've had with you, that sounds like something I wouldn't want to miss. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. So honestly, it's just going to be kind of like what we did now. I think it's just going to be us sitting and like really speaking and deep diving into our personal issues, what our issues with ourselves are. Are they our fault or are they the fault of society? Why do we feel this way? And I think it's a lot of questions that people are afraid to ask themselves. I think it's a lot of things that um, I feel like people know, but they don't want to tackle. I feel like we're comfortable. And I think it's important to get comfortable being uncomfortable with any situation. And that's something that I want to help out with. I want to like set this self-love seminar, I guess we can call it, and really discuss and share our experiences, our stories, and find ways to help us gain that confidence together.
I think it's really admirable that you are so committed to creating such a safe place for people, for travelers who are coming from marginalized communities where maybe they haven't had the opportunity to actually talk about these type of things. Like how do you love yourself as someone who maybe you don't look like the people around you? How do you travel as someone who is going to be faced with a lot of maybe discrimination or biases? And I think that's really awesome that you are making it a priority to bring these travelers in, to create a community and to give them a platform to finally speak on what scares them, or what even excites them as a traveler coming from a marginalized community. And speaking of which, I am also a traveler from a marginalized community, and so I definitely understand that it can often be difficult to feel safe while traveling the world. And so I'm curious about how you feel about group travel companies like TrovaTrip that are working towards creating a more inclusive and safe environment for all travelers.
So at first, I was a little skeptical. I feel like if you're not skeptical about things coming your way, like you're doing the wrong thing, like question everything. But after like really like looking into it, doing my own little deep dive, like I felt like the first initial conversations, I felt really like safe and comfortable. And I think it's such a unique opportunity because at first I was, of course, a little confused on how to like explain it. And then I was like, in reality, it's convenience, but also it's putting people together that have similar experiences. And I think that works because we get to tackle those experiences together. I think it makes us feel less alone. Like there's other travel companies where you're just going with a bunch of strangers, but they don't necessarily have similar experiences. So you're not really making those memories with people other than the people you're going with, unless you're going alone. Versus this one, when you do come, like I think you do have opportunities to meet people with similar stories, similar backgrounds, similar experience, and really get the opportunity to meet like potential friends for life. And like it makes the trips that more exciting because you're going to experience it with people like you.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think that that really represents what TrovaTrip is all about. Like we are very intentional about who we work with and making sure that our operating partners and our guides on the ground, that they're educated on using inclusive language, and they practice living out an experience for our travelers to ensure that all travelers feel welcome and safe. And I definitely feel like many travelers come as strangers and then they leave like a family, or they've created a bond with people that they would have never met otherwise. And so it truly is an honor to have you be a part of that process, because I think you're the perfect fit for what TrovaTrip is trying to accomplish. And working with hosts like you just makes that mission statement all that much easier to implement, and it just continuously reminds us of why we do what we do.
Yes, thank you. No, thank you so much. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Like I said, I think it's such a unique opportunity and I'm really excited.
Sweet. Well, Naomi, it has been such a pleasure to get to know your story better. I want to thank you again so much for joining us today. Before we wrap up the interview, we just want to ask you one more thing. You did already kind of touch on this, but you have the phrase, love yourself first always, in the bio of your Instagram page. What
Yes.
does this mean to you, and how do you practice it in your daily life?
Yes. So final question. It's my mission statement. It's my way of like, when people come to my page, I want them to know, like, love yourself first. I think we are always so focused on loving other people before ourselves. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing, I think we kind of lose sight of who we are. And I think it's just so important to just put yourself first. Like, if you want to go on a trip, do that trip. Why are you like, you know, put yourself first. That's just what it basically means. Love yourself, put yourself first, give yourself those affirmations. Don't be afraid to be yourself. That's really the key part of it.
I think that is a beautiful mission statement, and that was so well said.
Yes.
Well, we want to thank everyone in our Trova community for watching this exclusive interview with Naomi. And we, of course, thank you, Naomi, for taking the time to share your amazing personality and spirit with us. Be sure to check the description for all the ways that you can follow and support Naomi. And you can also, and how you can join her on her upcoming trip to Bali.
Yes. It's going to be